You want me to?
Feel free.
Okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll start with roll call. Start us out, Paul.
Sure. Paul Foster, District 3.
Rick Buchanan for the court clerk.
Leanne Hines, Assessor's Office.
Joe Cloud, D1.
Jessica Clayton, D2.
Carrie Hudson, County Clerk.
Okay, we'll start with number 1, discussion and possible action regarding minutes of April 17th, 2024. Has everyone had time to review the minutes?
I'll move them.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Number 2 is discussion and possible action for election of chairman and vice chairman for the remainder of calendar year 2024.
Are we going to have special meetings or anything?
Between now and January.
Yeah.
Who's the current chairman and vice chairman?
It was
Chairman
Michelle,
Michelle.
and Karen Kent was the vice chair.
Yes, and now Joe serves in Karen's seat.
And then Christy is serving in Michelle's seat. And I'm
Where's
alternate.
Christy?
Had lots
Mr.
to do.
Buchanan, I believe you would make an excellent chairman if you're willing to do so.
Second.
For the
The rest of the year.
Okay, yeah.
You got a couple months.
Maybe we punish Brandon since he's not here.
I texted him and told him that since he's not here, he's going to be
He's
chair.
the vice chair. Oh,
As the vice chair.
okay.
So Buchanan and Holmes as chair and vice chair.
I'll second the motion of Mr. Buchanan as chair and Mr. Holmes as vice chair. All in favor? Aye. Number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding proposed changes to section
mine.
3.3.
My job, man.
Oh, sorry, you should do it.
Nicely done. We should have brought the gavel to pass the
We need the gavel.
That was
Please carry on.
nice.
I'm teasing, but item 3 is in regards to, and thank you, Leanne, for pointing this out, is the proposed changes to section 3.3 in the handbook, work week and work period. Why don't you go ahead and explain?
Well, I have been combing through this thing, like basically ever since our last meeting, and just finding interesting things here and there. But this one just really jumped out at me. I know a lot of people get confused with AM and PM when it comes to 12. You know, they don't know that 12 AM is midnight, 12 PM is noon. I've had this come up with students, you know, when due dates would happen, and they're like, oh, I didn't know when that was. I'm like, well, you're in college, you should know when that is. But anyway, this is not correct. If you read, just starting at the beginning, we have a 40-hour work week, which I'm on page 59 of the handbook, very bottom, which commences at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday and ends at 12 midnight on Saturday. What we think of as 12 midnight on Saturday is 12 a.m. actually on Sunday, right? So it just seems like we ought to go ahead and just put those times in. I mean, if you're saying Saturday when what you really mean is 12 a.m. Sunday, then you've got the wrong day there, technically. But we think of it that way. So, you know what I'm saying? People might or might not be confused on that. You know, and then it goes on to say, you know, for this 28-day cycle for law enforcement and detention officers, this one's definitely just wrong. It does not cover 28 days. It says we want to start at midnight on Saturday. No. Midnight on Sunday and go to midnight on Saturday, 4 weeks later. And that's not, that doesn't cover 28 full days. Anyway, I don't know, that use of midnight, I think it would just be better. Like I would tell my students, the day ends at 11:59 p.m. And then once you click over to midnight, it's the next day. So if I said this is due on Friday, 11:59 p.m. was your last chance to submit it online, and it'd still be Friday. If the clock clicked over to 12, it's no longer Friday, it's now Saturday and your paper's late. So I think this use of midnight and all that, I think that gets confusing. I think we ought to just go ahead and use the correct times, and put AMs, PMs, 12 a.m., 12:01 a.m., 11:59 p.m., if those are the kinds of things we want to acknowledge. Because I think the use of the other language can be confusing because people aren't sure what day you're really referring to. Does that make sense?
So on the 28-day cycle, we would change it to say
Well, what
12 o'clock a.m. on Sunday
Yeah.
and end then at 11:59 p.m. on Saturday. Because the 28-day cycle is also a Fair Labor Standards Act rule
Right.
as well.
So I put here what most people consider midnight on Sunday is actually 12 a.m. Monday. So if you're going from 12 a.m. Monday and you want 28 days later, that would be at 11:59 p.m. on a Sunday. But the way it currently reads is, midnight on a Saturday. So midnight on a Saturday is like a whole day off on that one.
Payroll.
So I don't know what day is intended to be here. That's what got me confused. I don't know if they want it to start on a Monday or a Sunday or.
It's 12 a.m. on Sunday
Okay. So.
through 11:59 on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. So then so it should be 12 a.m. Sunday, and then 28 days later would be 11:59 p.m. Saturday. Correct?
If they're on
Yeah.
a 28-day pay cycle,
For 28 days.
which is the law enforcement.
Yeah.
That's
just-
not what it currently says. I didn't have a chance to cruise those.
I just think there's a lot of room for misinterpretation or misunderstanding. If we say midnight on a day instead of giving an exact pinpointing the time.
This is 12 midnight on Saturday, which
Just put PM. It'll be 11:59 on Saturday. And that's how it's in payroll currently. Yeah, so we need to make the changes to list how it reflects in our payroll.
Yeah, whatever they do. We can make the handbook just match.
Right now, we
Yeah.
still, am I correct, we still call it a draft version of the handbook?
Yeah, it's still a draft.
Or either one?
I wasn't sure what that meant. What does that
That
mean?
hasn't been
that
officially
means for the
adopted.
last, 20 years, we can't get one through.
So this one's from 2020. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the most recent one, correct?
Is there any more discussion? So, do you have her proposed changes? Can you put it into the minutes?
I will
Okay. All right, is there any
figure
other
it out.
discussion?
She has.
And what we'll
What
need
was the
to,
motion?
Well, there were two different things in here. I don't, if we wanna just address the 28-day thing, that's fine. But then the work week itself, for just a regular 40-hour work week.
Why don't you just have somebody go through the document and take a whole midnight out and change everything to 12 a.m.
Or
and
PM.
11:59 p.m.
Mhm.
everywhere it is.
Yeah, and then just make sure it matches how payroll has in their system.
Makes sense.
So is that your motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for that review.
Thanks for catching that. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. This is another request.
Rick, sorry. And who is the somebody that's gonna make sure this is done? Because the budget board needs to approve it, the recommendation.
Yeah, I agree. I guess, I don't know if I have a current copy of the handbook. If I could get one, we can.
There should be one linked on your desktop, a little
Info
icon,
zone.
info zone.
Yeah, I've got a Supreme Court network computer that
I can bring you a copy.
I'll find one. But I can
So
work.
they essentially would just need to put it on the agenda, correct, for budget board? You have
Yeah.
access to Legistar?
Nope.
Well, why wouldn't the assessor's office do it? Is there a-
Yeah, can you do that?
I think so.
Just up to you.
Okay.
And then we'll, when's budget board meeting? Is it 2 weeks?
Maybe Marcy, do you have access to Legistar? Okay.
Is budget board 2 weeks from
I think so.
Yeah, let's, put it on the agenda. All right. You have another email string about info zone, Leanne. Tell us about it. Item 4.
Well, I just, like I said, I had just, after the last meeting that I was at, somebody, and I don't remember who, was like, well, maybe we should just redo the whole handbook and make it more concise, like Tulsa's or something to that effect. And so, I looked at ours and I looked at Tulsa's, which is this big, and ours is this big. And so that just got me curious, and I've just been going through it then kind of off and on as I had time ever since. And so I'm just curious, do we truly want to try to revise this whole thing? I've been going through it and just doing a little bit of that, like I said, off and on, and trying to compare these two documents. And when I got to, so this little email stream related to the computer security section, which is section 2.21. And I came to this thing that says, protect laptops in accordance with the laptop security tips available on the Oklahoma County elected officials intranet. And I said to myself, I don't know what that is. I don't know what the Oklahoma County elected officials intranet even is. I asked one or two people in the office, they're like, I'm not sure what that terminology refers to. So I emailed someone in IT, Jared, and I asked about this laptop security tip on the Oklahoma County officials intranet. Can you tell me if this intranet is still viable? If so, how do I access it? If that's not a thing, do you know if laptop security tips are accessible somewhere else for employees? And he sent back to me, said, I looked all over InfoZone for it. I can't find it. Are you looking for information for personal laptops? And then I was like, no, I'm not really looking for the information per se. I'm just looking at the handbook and trying to understand what it's saying to see if this language makes sense. And so then he was like, well, we need to do a lot of work on that, and we need to update some things. And so obviously, we've got sections in here that are sort of obsolete, I guess, even at this point. And so, you know, we've got those kinds of things we can address as far as just updating the entire book. And, you know, if we want to make it more concise like this. So, you know, I've just, like I said, I've been doing this a little bit here and there, different days. I had a little bit of time. I've been going through this and I've made it pretty far through it. But just with that little email string, I was like, well, you know, I think there might be other places in here that are just obsolete, especially as it relates to computers and technology. So we may really need to revise that if the handbook just doesn't give information that's
I think there's
still
several
viable.
areas that need to be
Yeah.
looked at, and then, I think when we're done with it, I think it needs to go over to the DA
Absolutely.
for them to review to make sure that we're in compliance with.
And as I said, as I
Before
went
budget.
through it, I could tell that some of our policies are not identical to Tulsa policies. So obviously, you know, we've got to keep our policies that whomever decides those things has decided on. But we can still probably, you know, make things more concise if we want to. I mean, if we want it to be big and thick, then, you know, if that's our decision, then we'll have, you know, the big thick thing. If we want it to be more streamlined and concise. You know, I had written on the front of this as far as just an overall review of it. Just note to self, do we want this to be in second person or third person? Because it switches back and forth. Sometimes it'll be an employee should, and then sometimes it's like you should. And as an as an English teacher, I'm just like, I need to pick one or the other, which shouldn't be sometimes in third person, sometimes in second person. Just little things like that I notice as I'm going through it, so.
So I have a question. Carrie Bernard, who is our DA that handles all things HR issues, and any time that we have I need an assessment in regards to a termination, we send it to you. I'm assuming that these have never been reviewed by the DA, our current handbook.
I don't actually know the answer to that question. Since I've been assigned to the facility, I've had policies here and there, but I've never reviewed the whole entire thing. It's not been requested. I know Lisa Enders, who also does employment stuff in her office, I think she's had, at one point in time, reviewed the entire handbook. But I don't believe we've ever been really offered.
Tasked with that.
Right.
I feel like, in my personal opinion, that especially since this is our guidebook in regards to how to handle in HR our employee matters, this is what we refer back to in regards to best practices, making sure that they're compliant and up to standards by professionals that understand employment law and, you know, possible changes that have happened since 2021. In my opinion, I feel like it would be best to start with those that have a really core strong understanding of that, see their recommendations, and then be able to go from there. Us review it from the beginning to the end and say, okay, do we want, you know, is this something that we absolutely have to have? Is this something that, you know, we want to adopt? I just feel like it's not very clean, and I agree with you. That was my first perception of it, and it's something that we've been working on for a very long time. But starting with the facts and updated, yes, this is exactly, you know, what this should say or shouldn't say. This is by law what you know, we are going to be recommended to handle this situation. And asking that DA opinion would probably be the best way to start. That's my has been my thought from the beginning is, you know, let's start with something that has been reviewed by the district attorney, because they're, in the end, if we have any employee issues or EOC claims or unemployment, you know, emails that come through, we're going to be referring back to them anyways. So how does everyone feel about having the DA review these and then looking through them from the beginning to the end in meetings and calling specials in order to make sure that we can actually accomplish a draft of the handbook that we all feel really confident about, that we can put across the BOCC and budget board. I don't know if it's BOCC, but whoever is the final determining budget board. I just think we need a starting place, and starting with the experts, in my opinion, is the best thing.
That makes sense.
Because, yeah, we've gotta have the legalities all correct.
Laws change all the time. And so we all have experience of, supervising and some, have experience in HR matters, but I would feel most comfortable starting with those that, are experts in that.
Cause I was thinking just HR in general, I'm like, who knows exactly what these things, I wasn't thinking the DA's office, but.
Because ultimately, that's what we're referring to, and then going to our district attorneys in order to get guidance, and then if there are lawsuits, they're the ones that are supporting us.
Yeah.
Right. So I would make a recommendation in order for our Oklahoma County Employee Handbook to be reviewed by the district attorney's office to offer recommendations on changes and updates to the policies for us to be able to come back and review as a committee and start from the beginning to end and try to finalize a copy for next year.
And check for legality.
Legality.
Make sure they reflect current
Statutes and changes.
Is there any changes just in like policies though that might not necessarily be legality that we would want to recommend before they do legality?
I think they
Just
should
so
look at
we're
all of
clear,
those.
as far
that's all
as-
we can do. I mean, if there's something that should or should not be in there, you will not get we don't weigh in on policy. So it might be beneficial to go through to see if there's something you all agree that either is not gonna be in there into it or be in it. Because our opinion would only be, yes, we approve as to legality. And that's really basically it. Because Aaron is very clear, we do not weigh in on policy decisions.
It's fine, yeah, the policy decision ultimately comes down to the budget. But legal issues, I mean, I'm unaware, and Joe's as sharp as a tack on the FMLA stuff. And I don't know where the feds or if anything's changed, but I would think there's been changes since we updated the handbook in 2021. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, and that part though would be part of the legality, because that's gonna be a federal law, so, so, but, I know like one of the things for our office was, which is just policy, like the lactation room or something, there was something about you could only have a 20-minute time limit. Well, that might not be sufficient.
Right.
So, personally, that should be left up to our elected officials to determine how long you're gonna allow an employee.
Well, then you're
but-
potentially creating disparate treatment across the organization. And one of the reasons that we have this handbook is to eliminate that, because if you want to get sued, that's one of the very good reasons. You and I we have similar jobs, similar tasks, however, because you work for XYZ, you get 4 hours for lunch and I get 30 minutes when we're performing the same job essentially. So you got to be careful about that. And part of, in my opinion, just getting through this again quickly, this is loaded with examples. Joe went to lunch at 12:03. He was gone an hour and a half, but yet he worked 2 hours over his normal. So what is Joe's entitled to? 30 minutes of comp time, which is
Unless you're exempt.
right. But I mean, this
Right.
you want to talk
Yeah.
about making it
Right.
more concise.
So,
It's
yeah.
full of examples as well.
Yeah.
All for that, but
Yeah, and
So,
Brandon,
take it.
not having Brandon here, I wish he was, but he's got lots of personal knowledge about law enforcement requirements and stuff, so.
Right.
When you mention the FMLA stuff, I don't remember specifics, I don't have that written down, but I remember thinking there were a few things that I wasn't clear. I'm like, wait, is this talking about paid leave, unpaid leave? And it just,
It's unpaid, FMLA is 12, you're guaranteed 12 weeks of unpaid leave, but the employer, if you have paid leave available, and what we do is we require you to utilize your paid leave.
yeah, and so in those
And
places
it's
where it was kind of meshing together, sometimes it was like, wait, now are they talking about the paid or the, I don't know, so there were just things I thought this could be clearer, but if this is like legal language that we got from somewhere else and we just need to leave it as is, so I wasn't sure. So I was like, I don't know if we could
So
fiddle
do-
with that wording to try to
do-
make it more clear.
So do we need to work on some of that before we give it over to the DA for final?
Well, they wouldn't do final, they're just gonna
No,
provide
right.
recommendations.
Right.
I mean, I don't see why you
For
would
the
have,
legal, yeah.
on the legal side, have them
It
look
just-
over it and then let's just start from the beginning and have meetings to figure out what we're gonna keep and what we're not gonna keep and what needs to have recommendations for changes.
I think this will be good to tackle. We gotta make sure that FMLA stuff is up to date.
We just need a starting point. This has gone on for too long. We shouldn't have an interim handbook from 2021. We should be able to come together.
back before that
Or before that. So whatever we can do to have a starting point.
It's at
and then
least
go
10
from-
years. as
Go
in
from
a-
the beginning and get something accomplished. In regards to making sure we have a clear understanding for employees, as well as supervisors and our HR department in regards to how to handle situations.
Well, appreciate the email stuff. I know because of COVID, there were policies in place. A lot of people were given take-home computers, assessor's office, county clerk's office. But that was a huge deal, and security's changed so much since then. Party authentication, and all this stuff. And it's just random. We have, through the state court network, we have monthly training that we have to respond to and pass a test. And if we don't pass, they cut off our access. So we've got 140 some odd folks in there, including Mr. Warren, that have to take a test.
It's orderly.
Yeah, so it'd be good to hear from Dane Coffey and get some guidance in that area.
Well, and each elected official and each department's gonna have their own processes. But we need this is our HR
Yeah.
policy, or not our, sorry,
We have
employee
This
handbook.
committee has taken a few luxuries, I'll use that word, it's a word of art, it's not meant to be negative, of just meeting twice a year, because we got caught up years ago when, God bless him, dug into Volson's minutia. But his intent was very sincere in updating the handbook, but it just remained an interim handbook for the longest time. And I think next year, I haven't even looked at this yet, but we only have 2 dates set up. I don't know if the agenda only has the 2 dates, can we add dates?
We can have specials. We can call special handbook meetings.
You're limited for deciding today what is on,
Yeah, okay.
but yes, you can also do special meetings.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I'm busy enough as it is, but I think we should meet once a month and just have special meetings. And we'll, I think, in December, I'll call for a special meeting in January. So that gives us 6 weeks, what are we, 7 weeks before the end of the year?
I think you've moved on to another agenda item. We're still on 4.
Well, I'm just speaking out loud right now, but,
So Rick, you're talking about the meeting schedule as it relates to the discussion that we're having now.
yes.
The timeliness of being able to review this. So
Yeah.
let me offer this then as
Sure.
when we do get to item 5, if you're looking at calling a special meeting to deal with potential revisions of the handbook, why don't we just strike item 5, and at the time we have another meeting, come back with a suggested calendar of meetings next year that reflects your thoughts of one per month.
I think you have a
As long as
statutory
that's by
deadline of
December 15th.
So just as long as you guys have your meeting before December
Right.
15th.
The regularly
Okay.
scheduled meetings have to be approved by December 15th.
Okay,
Now, we can have specials anytime, but
So we'll
if
have
we
a-
don't adopt this as the regularly
We'll have
scheduled,
a meeting.
then the meeting needs to happen in time for clerks of the board to get that notice
right.
for the
Secretary of
regular
State.
by December 15th.
We've got a weird schedule in December. But can everybody look at their calendars? Is everybody available during the week of the 9th through the 13th? You want to look at your calendars real quick? And is there anything more on item 4 while we're there?
I made a motion in order for the DA to review it. Are we gonna send it, are we wanting to move forward with providing it to the DA for revisions and then meeting once we receive that back to discuss?
There's a second. That was your motion?
That was my
Is there a
motion.
Then you're gonna
second?
have to resubmit the revisions to the DA.
Well, are we
So,
gonna discuss
just-
policy changes
I would
before we?
discuss the policy changes first.
Okay. We've been trying to discuss policy changes for a long time. So,
So you said between when? I'm sorry.
9th through the 13th.
9th through the 13th.
Everybody have?
Mondays are not usually a good day,
No, it's a jury
but
meeting.
part of it'll depend on COB and what meetings are here.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll get with you guys and we'll find a day that works, but Monday is jury Monday, so.
Yeah.
We're saying. And plus, there's gonna be construction at the front entrance during
So when would you
the
prefer to meet?
10th BET is in here in the afternoon. January or December?
No, December.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear,
oh,
but
no, no,
No, you're right, the
I just
10th.
didn't have my calendar.
It doesn't look like on the 11th that there may be anything in here on Wednesday.
there's just BCC.
Right.
Okay, we'll look at, just say temporary, look at December 11th, which is. a
Yeah, the
Wednesday.
12th should be good for Thursday. There's not usually Thursday.
One of those days.
Yeah.
That's fine for Thursday.
I'm sorry, Jess?
Thursday looks good, on the 12th.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
What time?
I'm available anytime.
Yes.
Nice.
We're staying with it. It's one.
I'm gonna say 1:30.
1:30, that works.
I'm good with that.
That's
What page
It's
up?
normal.
Let's say the 12th. But I'll send you an email about it. Captain Bayston.
Because clerks of the board will send out a
Real quick here.
notice of meeting
Yes,
for it.
Captain. Yes, sir. I'm sorry? I don't know, sir. I'm in a handbook meeting right now. I can get it for you as soon as we're done. Okay, thanks, sir.
Was there a second on number 4?
Yeah, was there, Jess, what was your motion again?
It sounds like, I think it died for a second, so.
For lack
We're
of
gonna,
a
for
second.
lack of a second, so, we're gonna meet again on December 12th, and everyone's gonna bring their revisions to the policy before we, possibly have the
Want to
DA
assign
review.
certain sections of the handbook to each person, or just have everybody do their own revision?
Then bring versions that where you're proposing that language be removed, that it's stricken through, and your additions to language would be bolded and underlined, please.
Yeah, if you're gonna
Much
do
easier.
revisions, that's gonna be just, you gotta do the strike through and then suggested language.
And we recommend that those be sent to clerks of the board ahead of time so that they can get them out to all of us to see before we get here.
Yeah.
So we have time to
Don't send them to this committee, send them to the clerks.
clerks of the board.
Yes.
And then they will forward them, so we know what we're looking at ahead of time.
We have smart people on this committee, really smart, so. I think, just quick history, Leanne, when we tackled this with Doug and Volson, I don't know if we added to it, Joe or Cody, do you recall, did we add to it or did we make it?
Yeah,
There's been some additions.
there were some additions. Remember, medical marijuana
Yeah.
came along at that time, and we needed to clarify that. And then Doug spent considerable time, as you mentioned, going through it with a fine tooth comb and adding language, trying to make it clearer, but it made it much longer.
So that could be part of your frustration.
And there are some changes that I think have occurred. If I recall correctly, the only thing that we're subject to is time and leave. Does that sound right at the state? And so those accruals, I think there was some legislation last year that increased the ability, the accrual limits that we will need to take a look at.
That was
What-
on the last
From 480
handbook
to
meeting.
when
It didn't happen though, right?
Right, they didn't.
When
It was gonna be
480
looked at again,
600 or six,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was 6 something instead of
Six.
480.
640.
640 was a split, yeah. So there's that. I can't recall what else the legislature.
There was some changes in Title VII that included transgenders, I think that added that. And now we also have the Pregnancy Workers Act, so that would
Yeah, oh, yeah, on the federal side. And then
Yeah, there's a lot. We've got some catching up to do, there's no doubt. So I'm gonna, I think we should all look at meeting at least monthly. Item 5 has these days suggested. I'm gonna motion to strike.
yes, so
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens here to participate, Cody?
You don't want me participating.
How about board comments?
None.
Just.
No.
Joe?
If I'd known you were gonna take up the handbook again, I wouldn't have done this.
Well, just like you said, the reason we have this is so all 8 elected officials are on the same page in how we treat our employees. So,
The good news is Joe just appointed it alternate. Just appoint you at alternate.
Right there.
anyway, thank you all for your time and be prepared for a grind, but it needs to be a grind. We put our shoulder to the grindstone and present it to the budget board. So, but it's work that's for the betterment of hundreds of employees that affects their families. So keep that in mind. All right, meeting adjourned. Well, make a motion to adjourn. Somebody,
Second.
second? All in favor, say aye.
No,
Joe, I just want,
Joe wants to keep talking.
Joe, I just don't think it would be fair to deprive this group of your expertise.
so yeah, right, okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
suck up.
Carrie, is it possible that you might be able to find a Word version of whatever
I think so, yeah.
that we can,
Yeah.
rather than trying to
I'll-
convert it from
I'll
a
see what,
PDF?
yeah,
Okay.
I'll see what we can find and get it to clerks of the board so they can pass it around.
Yeah, it's
We've
gonna
probably
be
got
in there.
numerous, it's just a matter of which
Something
one.
Doug sent in the meeting,
Right.
whenever he left. 4 years ago.
It's not IT.
Michelle probably, yeah.
Yeah, the conversion thing, just sometimes the formatting gets off.
Ugh.